Hey guys, welcome back to According To. I'm Megan.
And I'm Ciera. For this week's episode, we are going to be discussing a couple of the internet's hottest takes that Megan and I could find. Megan and I each found our own list of hot takes, and then we'll be sharing them with each other and with you guys and discussing if we agree or disagree with these hot takes.
Now you may be asking yourself, what is so different between a hot take and an unpopular opinion? And to be honest,
not much.
I don't fully know that there's one specific answer, but when we do our unpopular opinions episodes, we do them all from the unpopular opinions subreddit, and these hot takes we just kind of gathered from wherever we could find them from. So some of them I found from TikTok, some of them I came up with on my own, some of them there's like What Do You Meme, I think, has a hot takes game, and so on TikTok some people were like asking people questions from those cards, so it's really whatever, but essentially it's kind of the same thing. It's supposed to be a hot take because someone, if you say it to someone, they're probably going to like disagree with you or kind of be like, that's a very unpopular opinion. But yeah, so before we do that, we always like to do our kind of catch up with what's been going on in our lives recently, as well as share our weekly spotlights. So I'll go first. My weekly spotlight was that when we went to the lake this weekend, I decided that I was going to drive the boat, which included 3 big things, because driving it on the water, that's the easy part. Anyone can do that. And I have limited experience with driving the boat, but that's usually because our grandpa or our uncles are the ones that like drive it, or Haley, if she's up there when we're up there, she feels a little more comfortable. But this weekend, Haley left pretty soon, and so if we wanted to go on the boat, one of us was going to have to take one for the team. It was like me, Ciera, our grandma, and our mom. So backed it out. That's also not too bad because you really can only
already lined up.
You can really only go straight back, and like that's also pretty easy. But when we did a little lap around the lake, we were coming back in, and we were going to dock it on our dock so we could enjoy it just out of the shore station for a little bit. And I was kind of like, okay, this is like step 1 of like, I still have to like get it back in the shore station when we're done, but like everyone helped out with getting like the buoys over the sides and like getting the ropes situated and whatnot, and I just took it nice and slow, but like I had like the perfect little lineup, no bumps, no like ooh, like you just hit the dock and like, you know, it's fine, because that's usually how it goes. Even like our grandpa would do that too, and it's kind of like it's fine, but it's not
ideal.
Preferred. But it was so smooth, and I was like, okay, this means that like I'm gonna screw up going into the shore station because we're doing a little too well.
It also right now. It wasn't too crazy of a day. Like had this been on a wavier day, things might not have been so
perfectly
smooth.
Calm either.
I know, but like it wasn't too crazy, which is good for you.
Yeah. Then we had it out for a couple hours. Decided it was time. It was kind of getting windier again, and like possibly going to like start storming soon. And so we were like, okay, it's probably time to get it put away now. And this was the part I was nervous about. Also because, like,
Megan times this. So there were some neighbors outside, like, also just doing their own outdoor lake activities. Mm-hmm. And they had just, like, left on their boat. Someone had gone inside. And Megan's
I was like, now. We're going now. Because I do not want people, if I screw this up and, like, I'm crashing into the shore station, like, I don't want the neighbors to be out there making fun of me. And so I was like, now, like, we're going now. And so we pull away from the dock. I'm taking it around to like circle and reline it up to go in the shore station. And I mean, we're pretty far away, and I just decided to like take a nice slow approach. And Ciera and my mom were in the boat in the front, kind of making sure it was staying lined up. I thought Shore Patrol was like,
I thought they were coming
close
back
by too.
Well, they were close by.
They were
like,
close by,
back.
and I was like, they don't need to like, I don't know. I just felt like they were kind of like hanging out by us when I was like trying to circle around. It didn't end up being Shore Patrol. It was like just Clear Lake boats.
Oh.
But they have like similar looking Shore Patrol type boats. They didn't bother us. But I was also like, I don't need you guys watching me either. Like,
the experts, not the boatmen.
And so lining it up, taking it easy, going nice and slow. Because like I don't need to book it into the shore station. That's the last thing I need to do. But I had lined it up pretty well. I killed it maybe a little bit too soon because we were lined up perfectly.
Pull ourselves in a little
banging,
bit.
But we did kind of have to like finish pulling the boat in ourselves. But it was fine, and I was pretty pleased with myself. So
slowly but surely becoming a boat captain. My weekly spotlight is nothing specific like that, but I did enjoy going up to the lake for the weekend. I did think the weather was going to be a little bit nicer than it was. We ended up having a nice stretch of, a couple hours where it was hot outside. I actually got more sunburnt than I was expecting because I had put sunscreen on, but maybe I didn't reapply it frequently enough. Because when I showered and came out, I was like, oh, like, you can see my swimsuit and I've got some red on my chest and on my stomach. It's kind of faded now, but I was like, oh, I got more sun than I initially thought. But it's kind of cloudy, so I feel like that, messed with my judgment of how much sun I was getting. Played some cards on the boat. On the tiny little boat table, if you guys have been on just like a pontoon that has one of those tables that you plop in, they're not the biggest table. And we decided, let's play nuts, which is like you need 2-person solitaire. So
like,
it takes
if someone was
space.
Looking at the table and didn't know what we were playing, it would look like there's just like cards thrown all over the table.
And
like,
luckily,
on every square inch.
It wasn't too windy. It got a little bit windier towards the end of our game time where cards were flying. And then also if I dropped cards like that I was going through, I'd be like picking them up and being like, hopefully that's in the same order it was because they probably got kind of messed up. But it was okay. It was kind of fun to play some cards for a little something different. We don't usually do that.
Otherwise, we came back. Today's Sunday. We came back earlier than I thought we were going to just because it was like cloudy up there and not super warm. Maybe it changed now because it's pretty decent weather down here now, but that's also up north more. I was kind of joking around. I was like, should we go to the Mall of America?
Yeah.
And I maybe would have, except since we had to be back at like 5 today. I saw the mall only opened at 11, and so like we'd only be there for like 2 hours, and then to have like a 4-hour drive straight back, and that'd still be cutting it kind of close. I decided, maybe not. But I just like wanted to go to like Aritzia and Abercrombie, and just it seemed like a good idea if the weather was poor.
Maybe in the future. We still have to do our Worlds of Fun day.
I know.
At some point.
That or Adventureland.
Yeah, we could do either. It's crazy. Adventureland is our local amusement park, which is not nearly as nice or exciting or whatever as Worlds of Fun. Like, it's a good theme park, but Worlds of Fun is just
like it shouldn't be the same price as
and
Worlds
they're
of
the
Fun.
same price, which is insane. But whatever. I digress. Should we start getting into our hot takes?
Let's do it.
So the way that I went about this was I went to Reddit because I didn't know where else to go on the internet. I did end up finding one thing if I run out of stuff where it's just 36 hot takes from poly.ai. But before we get to that, I was on the books subreddit and then like a relationship dating subreddit, and then I searched within those to see if anyone had any hot takes or unpopular opinions.
Okay.
So we will start with the book one first. First hot take: audiobooks do not count as reading.
It's funny you mention this because like I almost thought of like putting something like that in one of mine, but I did not. I don't think it doesn't count as reading, but I certainly think when you hear the people who are saying like, I read 300 books this year, like you wonder how the heck did you do that? And then you find out like, oh, they're listening to like
and we do have to
every chance
like
they get.
Because every time I see, this isn't the first time I've seen this hot take, and a lot of people approach it from like the perspective of like some people can't physically read if they're blind or something. They have to listen to audiobooks to enjoy books. So like let's take that out of the equation. You have someone who can physically read, but they're choosing to only do audiobooks. Like, is that different? And I have not listened to an audiobook, like, ever.
See, I listen to audiobooks here and there. I'm listening to one right now because I'm doing a lot more driving in between, like, for my job. And sometimes, like, I don't always want to listen to a podcast or songs. And it also makes me, because here's the thing, I do count it on my Goodreads as, like, a book that's going to be checked off. And so in a way, I'm like, I might as well, like, be getting more books read. So, like, I do count it. Like, what are you supposed to do otherwise? I don't use it as, like, my preferred medium, but I certainly think it has a time and place.
I think so, too. I think the biggest holdup for people is because, like, what is your definition of reading? Is it the physical act of reading that you're then saying, okay, well, you've only read this many books. If you have physically gone through and read the words on the page, and that is reading. Or is reading, here's a book, there is a story within it, and you've listened to or if you've obtained the story in some way.
They're different cultures, really.
And so
I think that's where the separation comes in.
For me, like, as someone who doesn't read audiobooks, and like you've told me like, oh, you should like try an audiobook. First of all, I usually like podcasts when I'm in the car or something, and so that's my podcast time. But I do think I would feel conflicted if I was listening to a book instead of, like, reading the physical words. And I'm like, this isn't really reading for me. And also, I'm awful when it comes to, like, even podcasts. I, like, will zone out and stuff. So then it takes me out of the book. And I don't think I would obtain the book plot nearly as well.
I will say, too, though, as someone who's, like, because one of the ideal things, I feel like if you, like, enjoy reading is, like, it seems so ideal to, like, go read a book at the beach. But then, and that's, like, if I can do it, that's what I prefer to do. But sometimes what's hard is, like, as someone who has glasses or sometimes needs glasses, but I don't bring my glasses to the beach because, like, I'm not about to have glasses on my face and, like, my face is, like, sweating. I just don't want to be doing that. And then also sometimes, like, the sun can be very bright on the pages of my book where I'm like, oh my god, I can't even read right now because I'm really bad at bringing sunglasses.
Your book is acting like one of those things that people have that, like, reflects it back up to their face.
So sometimes, like, having an audiobook in that situation then is like, okay, I don't have to, like, worry about all those like annoying things going on, and I just get to, like, relax and enjoy my audiobook. And again, sometimes, like, I'll switch to just doing, like, a podcast if, like, that's the vibe and that's what's happening. But
and something else I will say, like, is 11/22/63 the only book that you've read in both formats?
Yes.
And the book got better when you were reading it, right?
Yes.
That was your takeaway. And so I always worry that, like, if I listen to an audiobook, then I'm like, what if it's not, like, giving the book its fair shot? Because when you were listening to that audiobook, I was like, no, Megan, like, this book is so good. And I just didn't feel like you were appreciating it as much as I was when I first started it. And then you finished it because your audiobook ran out. And then it got better. So I was like, now that you're reading the words and you're seeing it,
but
you're getting it.
I wouldn't say that's always, like, the case because summer 2021, I had, like, a big audiobook summer because I had, like, a long commute to my clinical every day, and I really got into, like, a lot of different audiobooks, and I enjoyed a lot of those audiobooks. So it certainly can be an enjoyable experience.
Mm-hmm. Ultimately, as far as, like, the hot take goes, I'm never going to, like, come at someone if they're like, I, read 25 books, but, like, 20 of them were audiobooks. I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, you didn't read them then.
In my head, I'll kind of be like, okay, a little caveat. But what do you, like, are you just going to make them not count it? No.
Okay. What is your first hot take?
My first hot take is Wikipedia is a reliable source.
That's not even a hot take. That is true. That is fact. It is canon. Do you guys know Megan didn't know what the word canon meant? Like, with the TikTok trend going around, you just had no idea.
I knew, like, what it was saying, but I haven't heard the use of that word as much as I have in, like, the past week.
Okay. I just was surprised that she didn't know.
And you'd never said that word either in your life until, like, last week.
Said it out loud? Why would I say it out loud to you? Like, most of the things that we discuss in life, I'm not referencing canon events that are true.
Well, last week you did, apparently.
Within movies, within books, that's, like, the context is mostly used. Except for the TikTok trend where it's being used as, like, it's a canon event. Like, this must happen in real life. Whatever. Okay. What was your hot take?
Wikipedia.
Oh. I always heard teachers would always say, Wikipedia is a good starting point, but then you have to use, like, go to their sources to then, like, find the credible sources.
Here's the thing. I understand Wikipedia is, like, not always credible because anyone can edit the page, but, like,
people that go and edit Wikipedia stuff, like, they take it seriously.
Like, most of the time, people on there are, like, doing their due diligence.
They are serving, like, the world. Like, these are the people that we need.
And sometimes, because, like, if you just want to know about something, and it could be, like, fairly niche, but, like, what do you go to first? Wikipedia, because that is just, like, the simplest way to get information about something.
Have you ever seen, like, Wikipedia on the
like, pages? There is no other...
They'll have, like, the edit history of the page or something, and it's just, like, these people who are, like, the editors going through being like, hey, like, I don't see enough sources for X, Y, and Z. Like, they are truly, like, they're not trying to mess with us, you know? Like, they want everything on here to be fact. And, like, they want enough sources.
And there is no other, like, if not Wikipedia, then what?
I don't know.
There is no other, like, all-encompassing platform to share information.
Plus, it's kind of nice that, like, the fact that Wikipedia even shows, like, the history of the pages and, like, changes that have been made, they're not trying to hide anything either. They're trying to be transparent. So, go Wikipedia. Every time the thing pops up every once in a while where it's like, donate money, I'm like, I should do that.
I should. I'm hyping up so much right now.
They're always like, if everyone on here were to donate, like, 1 cent, we wouldn't need to ask for another penny for 20 years or something. It's a thankless service, really. Like, they could charge for this. They should.
But they don't.
Okay, next hot take. Do you want me to go back and forth between my book and my dating ones, or just do all the book ones first?
You can do whatever you want, because mine are honestly in no particular order. So.
Okay, we'll stick with the book ones then.
I actually have one book-related one.
Okay. Most books over 400 pages have at least 100 pages of filler. And I also compiled a list of... I was going to do all the books that I've read over 400 pages, but I just did the ones over 500, because if it was 400, that was kind of a lot. So the books that I have read, and then to give me, like, some context for my personal opinion on long books. 11/22/63, The Name of the Wind, Outlander, All the Light We Cannot See, Red Metal, All Roads Lead Here, and Billy Summers. Those are all of the books that I've read that are over 500 pages. You've read a couple other books that are long, like the Romance Knock 'Em Out series. I don't know if you've read any other long books.
Probably just the romance, and then also I've read 11/22/63.
So
here's the thing.
I want your take first.
For romance, I definitely think the books don't need to be as long as they are. Like, they could be shortened for sure. And I feel like going off of just what this is saying, the 400 pages, like, I wouldn't say that.
Right?
I think 400 pages, like, you could have a very well thought out, I wouldn't shorten a thing.
400 is not that long. Like, here's what Meg and I have kind of agreed upon with, like, books. 300 is, like, very average, typical. When it gets to 400, I'm like, okay, it's going to be, like, a little bit longer, but, like, nothing crazy. I don't scream when I see a book that's 400 pages. 500 is when I'm like, okay, it's going to be a long one. Like, it'll be a minute that I'm reading this. And then 600 up, I'm like, okay, wow. We are committing our time to this book. Yeah. So I don't think, personally, 400 is that long, which is why I said, for me, the 500 book is what I'm going to be thinking about. I do agree that I think a lot of romances that are that long do not need to be that long. Mm-hmm. All Roads Lead Here, I did give it 5 stars. So I loved the book.
But it was
also a slow burn. So it was like, the romance didn't even happen until the very end. But I also think it was more of a story that was not just the romance. So in that sense, it kind of worked okay.
But it could probably have been a little shorter.
It could have probably been a little bit shorter. I don't know, like, the Knock 'Em Out series. I don't know what goes on in that. And so, if you think that it could have been shortened.
I'm sure it could be a little shorter.
All the Light We Cannot See was not for me, but, like, I do think that it was an okay length for the story that it told.
And, like, pacing.
Yeah. Like, I think for the right audience, it was the perfect length. It's just, like, the book plot itself wasn't for me. Red Metal, for me, it could have been shortened because it was, like, military lingo and, like, battle planning after battle planning. So, to me, that all runs together. And I'm like, the same thing is happening over and over again. But, again, for the right audience, it probably, was necessary. The Name of the Wind could have been shortened probably a little bit, especially in the beginning, because it gave a lot of backstory that I felt like wasn't necessary. Outlander could have had stuff shortened down. Not enough stuff happens in that book for it to justify it being 600 pages. 11/22/63, I loved it. I think no single word should be removed. I thought, even though it is a long book, I thought it was all necessary.
Okay. My, only book hot take is reading only, this is one I came up with kind of by myself. Reading only self-help genre is dumb.
Is dumb.
I was trying to think of a better way to word that, but I gave up.
You know what's funny is I saw some hot takes and stuff related. I don't think I actually put this one down. But I saw stuff related to, like, people should read more, like, nonfiction was, like, the hot takes on here. Because I feel like everyone...
See, at first I did nonfiction / self-help. And then I removed the nonfiction because I remember when I was younger, like, when I was in middle school, I had a whole Abraham Lincoln type of phase. Like, I was, like, a nonfiction girly when I was younger. And so I took it out because I'm like, you know what? reading nonfiction and history can definitely be like a source of entertainment for people. So really what I was getting at was more so I think reading should be a form of entertainment for people. And I just think the self-help
You don't like
genre
when people
is
use
a
it
scam.
to try and better themselves.
I think the self-help genre is a scam, is what I'm saying. So it's more so it could apply to anything outside of books too. It could apply to
Like the
podcasts,
courses that
it could
people...
apply to courses. It could apply to different self-help influencers. I just think people buy into scams and they shouldn't.
Okay.
At the end of the day, anything someone that is in the self-help world says, you've probably seen somewhere else for free.
That is a good take. I like that one. This hot take for reading was, I love epilogues. What is your take on just like epilogues in general?
I read most of them, but I gotta be honest, when I get to an epilogue, especially if it's
An
like
epilogue?
a romance first, I'm like, okay, so now we get to like the part where like
They
they're
get
married, have
like,
kids,
there's a baby.
like
We get it.
and I'm just reading it because like I need to see what happens. They're telling me there's some more stuff, but like they could end the book and it'd be fine.
I really do not think an epilogue should be more than 5 pages.
Oh no.
Like,
No.
And when I already talked about this on the podcast, but the Soulmate Equations epilogue was like 20 pages or something, and I was like, it was...
This is a whole
I won't spoil it, I
last
guess.
chapter.
But I was like, this is not an epilogue. This is like last chapter 2 years later or whatever. I just need... The epilogue is supposed to be wrapping things up in a nice little bow in 5 pages or less. And like only if it's necessary. If you're alluding to the characters, if it's a romance that they end up together, I don't need to know that they got engaged
I figured.
or they had a baby. Like, I don't care. And honestly, sometimes it takes me out of the story of the book. Because I'm like, oh, now they're just getting married? That's boring. You know what I mean?
What about Ciera? I mean, I am too, but Ciera definitely is like an Emily Henry is one of her favorite authors. And so I found from a TikTok a like epilogue that basically combined 3 of her books, like all of them but Happy Place were combined into like a little fun.
It's called The Layover. The reason I liked that was because, I mean, also, I feel like that one still could have been a little bit long.
I didn't even realize until like I had like gotten into it. I was like, oh, this is like from all her books.
Yeah. That one I liked because it, one, wasn't in just like any of the books, so you had to seek it out. So it was for a very specific audience where it's like, you don't have to read it if you don't want to. And granted, you don't have to read any epilogue if you don't want to, but like if it's in the book, the author felt like it was necessary to put in there. I feel like Emily Henry wrote this, obviously after all these books were published, as like a nod to like a multiverse of sorts, which I liked. Especially since in her romance books, she's alluded to those characters existing within the same world, but we never got to see them interacting with within the same world in any of those books.
The airport setting,
it worked.
Was like a good place for that to happen.
And like they didn't even really explicitly like interact with one another. They were just like existing within the same universe, which I liked. But for epilogues in general, did Project Hail Mary have an epilogue? Because I don't think it did.
I think it was just the last chapter.
Because like you and I both know what happens at the end. That was the perfect ending for the book. I didn't need any more than that. Like it like just it ended. This is what happened, and you can imagine like what else happens from here. Like I didn't need like 20 years later, you know, Ryland Grace is still doing X, Y, and Z. Like I didn't need that. I didn't want it. I wanted like this is the ending. Picture the rest however you want. So in general, I don't know. I read the epilogues pretty much out of habit. Like I just have to know what happens. But sometimes I'm like, we didn't need that.
Sometimes I get to it and I kind of like dread the fact that I have to keep reading. Because I'm
What
like, I
about-
just finished the whole book.
What about a prologue? I'm like, why aren't we just at chapter 1?
I almost never like have a book that has a prologue.
There are a couple books. I always read them because I'm like, well, if it's the prologue, then I'm supposed to like, it gives me context or something, right? But like, why didn't we just, like, this is chapter 1. Mostly I don't get why they're prologues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is your next
Okay.
one?
Friends / How I Met Your Mother / The Office and almost all sitcoms are not really that good. I just feel like I'm certainly not the target audience for...
Is that one that you made up or is that
I
one
think
you
I
found?
like saw... It's like a very common hot take. So like I feel almost
A common hot take.
dumb like reiterating it because I don't think it's that hot of a hot take unless you're like a huge fan of these shows.
I mean, you and I have not watched these shows in their entirety. Like, we've seen episodes of Friends. I've probably seen
Here's the thing.
clips here and there of The Office and How I Met
can
Your
totally
Mother.
see why people, like, why they are comfort shows for people or why they're just, like, easy watches. And I don't have, like, a huge bone to pick with any of them for, like, why they're annoying or not good shows. I just feel like they're overrated, maybe.
I think so, too. So, you and I just, like, the shows that we like to watch, we aren't really sitcom people. Like, Monk is definitely a comedy, but...
It's not situational.
No, it's... There was a word...
There's no laugh track in it.
We looked it up one time to figure out what it was, and I don't remember if it was, like, a dramatic comedy or something. I don't know. So I definitely, I like my shows to be funny, but I like there to be drama in it as well. And not just, like, friendship, relationship, drama. So, for us...
Monk is categorized as a drama, so...
Okay. So I was right. Yeah, those shows, not for us. But, like, I'm not gonna... Here's the thing. I would never be, like, weirded out or confused as to, like, if someone was a fan of those shows. I would be annoyed if they're like, oh, you do not like those shows. I'd be like, let me like what I like. And, if I don't want to watch it...
I don't come at you for liking it. Don't come at me for not liking it.
It's people that watch Game of Thrones are the same way. They're like, you have not seen Game of Thrones? And I'm like, no. And I quite honestly don't really care to. So, let me like what I like. And I'll let you like what you like.
And sometimes I'll try out something new because it's popular. And sometimes I'm all in. And sometimes I'm like, not for me. Like Stranger Things, when season 2 came out. And I was like, okay, it's being talked about so much. Like, I need to give it another go. I did. And I was like all in. I joined the train. Ozark, same thing. It was being hyped up so much. New season, I think, had come out. So it was like, okay. I think it was also, like, COVID was going on, and so we were, like, really trying to find anything we could to watch. And it was like, I didn't, like, hate it. I could see why it's a show that people thought was interesting, but, like, it just wasn't enough to keep me entertained.
And, like, we gave it a good few episodes, I think, with our dad, and he didn't really even like it either. And our dad's usually someone who, like, it's not easy, or it's not hard to please him with, like, a show to entertain him. And I think that just further solidified. We've talked about how, like, shows, like, centered around drugs, for whatever reason, I'm just like, I don't care.
Like, Breaking Bad is regarded as, like, one of the best shows of all time.
And I know people say, like, it's not about the drugs, like, that's just, like, a subplot. And I'm like, well, I need a different subplot, because it's not doing it for me. Okay, next hot take I have is I prefer reading on Kindle.
I feel like this goes back to just kind of, like, reading in its purest form is with a book, so that's like where my heart lies. But I definitely do like reading from a Kindle or my iPad as well. I've actually been thinking more about like getting a Kindle myself, mostly because of reading in the sun, like I was talking about earlier.
Megan, I was reading like a week ago or something. I was reading outside, and Megan's like, "Wow, it's really fascinating that like there's no glare on your Kindle. It's really tempting." I love my Kindle. I use it regularly. But that being said, I also like use it, obviously Kindle Unlimited costs money, but like you can get an unlimited amount of books for a pretty good price. So in that sense, it's nice to have it for that too. But like you were saying, there's something about reading a physical book, owning like the physical
like being
book
able
that
to
you
add
read,
to our library,
putting it on the shelf, I can see it, having like the cover that I enjoy looking at. I know there's like big conversations about people, like some people hate when people buy books. Like, they're like, use a library. They hate when people buy books. And
I'm not part of that conversation.
And I'm just like, I like having our personal library. I like being able to loan out physical copies of books. I like being able to see my physical progress, especially if it's a longer book. Like, I want to see how thick that freaking book is and be like, I read that whole thing. And
it's a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. Maybe that's another reason why I don't love audiobooks or, like, the idea of audiobooks. But anyway, I do like my Kindle. To say I prefer reading on it, maybe if I'm outside or something, but otherwise...
You can have, like, more flexibility, definitely, if you're, like, on the beach or something. Like, sometimes you're trying to get comfortable.
It takes up less space. It won't get ruined nearly as easily. Traveling is better.
So there's definitely pros.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I saw it, so I wrote it down. It's weird to be friends with an ex. Hot take or no?
I think there's, it's situational. I need context. Is it weird to be friendly with them? No. Is it weird to be friends with them? Probably.
Yeah. I say, usually I think the best bet if you break up with someone is to just have, like, a clean break and go no contact. Like, I just feel like if you broke up for a reason, and in order to, like, prevent any lines from being blurred in the future, that's just the best way to go. But if you were to, let's say you had, like, a fairly amicable breakup, pretty, like, both of you were agreeable, but if you cross paths with them in the street or in the store, like, it's okay to, like, say hi, or maybe, like, how are you doing?
Or, like, what I think is weird is when people, like, wish their ex, like, happy birthday, and, like, you don't otherwise talk to them. Like, you're not obligated to wish them happy birthday.
No.
So, I don't know. Again, I've never broken up with someone. I've never been broken up with, so I don't know. Maybe I would eventually understand, like, where they're coming from.
Oftentimes it's, like, people that you try to remain friends with or keep communication open with, it's probably people that, like, you're not completely over them, and so you want to keep that door of communication open. And that's not always a bad thing, because some people do break up and then get back together and, like, it all quote unquote works out in the end. But then there's people who are also like, if you break up with someone, like, that's got to be it. You can't have, like, a second chance coming back because you broke up in the first place or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I mean, I would say generally I wouldn't want, if I was dating someone in the future, like, I wouldn't want them to be like, friends, oh, like, this is my friend so-and-so, like, we used to date. I'd be like, okay, so it's your ex-girlfriend. It's not, like, your friend that you used to date.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next hot take I have. This is my last book-related one. Way more people read because they want to be viewed as the kind of person who reads rather than because they enjoy reading.
I'm going to disagree with this, mostly because reading takes up way too much time.
I was also going to say that.
To just, like, be doing it to put up a front of, like, this is how I want to be perceived.
And, like, 9 times out of 10, you're doing it in private. Unless you're the type of person who, like, every time you pull your book out, you're posting on your story, like, time to read. But most people don't do that.
Yeah.
And so.
Did you see? I saw that, like, Olivia Jade and Jacob Elordi, is that his last name? Were, like, in Italy or somewhere, and, like, she was reading A Happy Life. And so people in the comments were like, why is she reading that book in public?
A Happy Life? What book is that?
What it's called? It's the guy, it's the black and white cover with the guys.
A Little Life?
Yeah. Yeah, she was reading that.
One thing about Megan is Megan does not know the names of books.
I've never read that one. Okay. But it made me laugh, because then part of me was like, I mean, she probably is actually reading the book, but I was like, I feel like it's a pretty,
I feel like a lot of celebrities probably
highly
do.
regarded book, and it's, like,
you know what I mean?
Provoking.
Like, since celebrities will be, like, out in public with paparazzi.
They have to, like, really think about, like, what books they're reading.
They do. Like, I think they actually do have probably, like, whether it's their publicist or whoever, they're probably like, okay, like, this is the book that you're reading now.
So, something to think about.
But as for the layperson, the general population, I think that people probably are only reading if they want to read. Or because I feel like reading is really in right now. I think a lot more people are certainly trying it out.
My next hot take is Harry Styles is the best modern day performer, which I saw from somewhere else, but I would be lying if I said I haven't also thought the same thing.
I think, like
between him and Taylor Swift, honestly.
Between him and Taylor Swift, I think that no one is doing a show quite like either of them.
Yeah.
I just feel like, especially with time.
I'm certainly a fan of Harry Styles. Like, he was on my Spotify Wrapped, but, like, I'm probably not, like, his top, like, peak audience, whatever they're called, Harry's.
Yeah.
And so, but I certainly appreciate who he is as an artist, his songs. Like, I am on Harry Styles' TikTok, like, always seeing clips of him at his concert. This man is always performing. He's always doing a concert.
Like, when was the last time he was not on tour?
Like, I swear he's supposed to be wrapping up soon, but, like, I just don't even feel like that's going to last. I feel like he'll have more shows before you know it. And I just feel like, especially with him just having performed at Slane Castle in Ireland, which is, like, a really big deal for like venues over there, like, and seeing kind of the comparisons of like the other big name artists that have performed there. And it's just like, it's one thing to be a good artist and have good songs, but it's another thing to have like the stage presence and the fanfare that they have at their shows like he does.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean,
I
think I agree with this hot take. I would have to go to both a Taylor Swift and a Harry Styles show to totally determine who is the bigger performer, because I think from what I've seen on TikTok, because that's my only reference for either of these artists, Taylor Swift's shows seem to have a lot more like wow factor, like, you know, costume changes and like lighting, and like she dives down into the stage, like, you know, some weird stuff like that makes it a cool show. But Harry's performances, from what I've seen, are like, truly, it is him. Like, he is the entertainer.
Yeah.
And so, in that sense, I think he has a leg up compared to Taylor. Okay. I'm out of my reading and book hot takes. I have fewer relationship and dating hot takes, so I will have to jump to my random list that I have at some point. So the first one is, with online dating, first dates aren't first dates. They are vibe checks, and then second dates are the real first date. And this was compared to the idea of, like, seeing someone attractive in a bar, you, like, go up and talk to them, and then if you hit it off, then you set up a first date.
Yeah.
So the thought behind this post was that, okay, on a dating app, you're swiping on someone, and it's like, okay, you're attractive. Your first date is then, like, when you go up and talk to them at the bar.
Yeah.
And then from there,
see that.
From there, you're like, okay, like, now let's go on an actual date.
And I feel like that's probably why, like, I 100% agree with this.
Okay.
I don't have any further thoughts. No.
This is why I think when we've talked about first dates these days, I think it's always been in the mindset of,
I feel like no, yes or no.
Well, I'm just talking about, like, the activity that you think of for doing on a first date. A lot of them have been very, like, casual, at least that we have talked about, with probably, like, in the back of our mind thinking of it being from a dating app is how you would initially set up said date. And, like, we've talked about going on walks. That is, like, pure vibe checks. Just, like, which you could argue, like, a date, you're talking to them anyways. But just, like, you don't want to commit to dinner on a first date a lot of times because people are like, well, I don't even know if I like this person. Mm-hmm. But, like, a second date, you're like, okay, the vibe check went well, so now we can commit to dinner. And it's just, you know, with this day and age, with how people are going on dates these days, they're not meeting always in person like they were. So a first date is the second date.
Yeah. How about this one I came up with on my own?
Hopefully it's a good one.
The only appropriate way to sit while at home is with your feet up. That could be on the couch. That could be eating dinner.
The only appropriate way to sit on a bar stool is with your feet tucked under and you're hunched over the counter.
I mean,
like a gremlin.
But basically, I actually usually do this on the podcast too, but usually I have socks on and then my feet aren't exposed. But I don't today, so
feet stay out of the frame.
But it's just like, that is so much more comfortable. I can't not sit like that. Like, my leg is always up on a chair. You know, at work and at restaurants, I don't do that. But otherwise, like, I imagine sitting at home just, like, with feet flat on the ground. Wrong.
No, it's unnatural.
So, that was my hot take. But some people think that's, like, gross and dirty, or, like, keep your feet down.
Yeah, some people have indoor clothes and outdoor clothes, and they refuse to either, like, themselves or let anyone else, you know, wear their quote-unquote outdoor clothes, like, on their furniture. That's a little ridiculous.
I think it more so depends on, like, how dirty do I feel. Because, like, I used to not get that at all. But, like, now I get it. If, like, I actively feel disgusting and dirty, like, I don't really want to, like, I'll lounge on my floor before I lounge.
I do that. I agree with that. But there's some people, like, they'll run to, like, the grocery store. And, like, nope, your clothes are tainted now. I can't sit on my bed. Can't sit on my couch. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, if I come back from the gym, I'm not going to, like, sit in my bed. I'm going to sit on the floor until I take a shower. And then I'll get in my bed.
Yeah.
Let me know, you guys, though. If you're sitting on a bar stool within someone, like, your own home, probably. You wouldn't do this at, like, a restaurant. But, like, I have to, like, sit both knees tucked under, and then I'm, like, leaning on the counter.
I'll sit with just one leg up, too.
That's, like, too small for me. Like, there's not enough room for, like, one foot to be propped up and my bottom to be on the chair. Okay. Next one I have is, again, another dating relationship one. People are too quick to call out red flags and jump ship with someone that they're dating these days.
See, this is one that I'm like, I agree with, but I could be like the one they're adding and saying like I'm the problem. I feel like maybe this is like part of just like the day and age we live in, but like you have like this illusion of choice of like there are so many options.
Yeah.
And it leads you to believe that instead of working through or dealing with someone's said red flag or something you don't like, because in theory,
like, it's easier to just find someone else.
But like there might not be, like you don't know if you're gonna find the perfect person out there. So
to keep jumping ship.
I agree with that, but I think it's hard to escape that mindset. Like that's the mindset I'm in of like, oh, I just won't worry about this, and like I'm not gonna make them change, but I would rather not have that in a partner, so I'll just keep looking.
Mm-hmm. And
it's hard to find the balance of it might not be ideal for me, but maybe it's going to be okay anyways.
Or like maybe, you could try work things out a little bit more than just like, you can always jump ship, I think this person's saying like, everyone's like, oh, you find out one red flag, I'm done. You don't bother like trying to learn more about like that red flag and see if it's something that you can manage with, or if it's quite like a red flag like you're making out to be. Is it like really that bad, or is it that big of a deal breaker?
Mm-hmm.
What is your next one?
Hotels are better than Airbnb.
Honestly, I love a good hotel. Not all hotels, like I've stayed in plenty of nice Airbnbs, and I've stayed in bad hotels. So it's not one or the other, I feel like. The nice thing about hotels is that they tend to have more amenities.
You just like know what you're going to get.
Especially if it's like a chain that you've stayed at before. Like when I go to Marriott, I know what to expect.
And like we've certainly had like fairly good Airbnb experiences before. And when I'm like looking at like places to stay, like when we're traveling, like I will look at both usually. But I feel like especially more recently, like hotels have been winning out. I just feel like you can find them for a better price, and it has what I need, and I don't necessarily need like a million things.
And like the good thing about hotels is that there's usually like, sometimes like the bureaucracy stuff is annoying, but like it also like has more accountability if it's a hotel. If it's an Airbnb, I feel like it's easier to get scammed.
Mm-hmm.
Or like not get what you were expecting.
I agree. But then you can also like, you certainly won't necessarily get like a unique stay if that's like what you're after.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'd probably have better luck with an Airbnb.
Next hot take I have. When dating, you should protect yourself by quote unquote playing the field instead of focusing on one person. This is a hot take that I can agree with, but I cannot do that. That requires too much of my effort to do that.
I applaud people who can do that, because like I've heard of people saying like they'll have like they're set like 3 or 4 on rotation, and if one is out, then it's time to get back on the dating app to add a third or fourth person back in.
Like they have a roster that they're dealing with. And I don't even think it's like a totally bad thing.
I think as long as you're transparent, like
that you're seeing other people, like it's fair game.
But it's also just like, to be honest, like I just have a hard time seeing that many reasonable matches that I would be like actively dating.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine having 3 or 4 just people you're actively talking to like all the time.
That's too much.
And I understand people like sometimes are like, I'm not talking to them all day, every day. It's just like you're setting up plans, you're seeing how things are going, and then continuing to like feel things out. But like I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah. It's effort for me to just like find one person to be interested in and have any conversations with, that I'm like, the idea of even like, I think there was like one time where I was like, I had like 2 matches at the same time that I was like kind of, and I was like, this is too much. So that didn't last very long. I stopped talking to one of them. Then I stopped talking to both of them. So
okay, traveling by train is the best way to travel.
I loved traveling by train in Switzerland and in Europe.
Anytime I see something talking about like the hypothetical high-speed rail that the U.S. could have, like I want it so badly.
I just saw a TikTok about someone using Amtrak, and like Amtrak is not the same thing.
It is not.
But I love the idea of just like a high-speed train system in the U.S.
Or even like if Amtrak didn't take as long, or honestly, like it is not cheap to travel by Amtrak. Like it takes more time and like the same or more amount of money. So like in theory, I would love traveling by train. Even just like I think that could be part of like the experience. But like I'm not going to justify it for that versus like in Europe, it was just so convenient, so easy when all the infrastructure was like built around having trains as like transport. Like it was incredible.
Like you don't have to do anything to get where you want it except for like get in the train, sit your butt down, and wait. You could do whatever you want. If you want to like listen to podcasts, nap, read, whatever, you could do it. And then you just show up at your destination.
Yeah. So I wish
it's
so
like a
badly,
plane but on the ground.
I wish so badly that the U.S. would invest more into railways, but not anytime soon.
Okay. I think that was the last specific one that I had written down.
I have 4 more.
Okay. Go through yours then.
Florida is the most overrated vacation spot in the U.S.
I can see where they're coming from, but like where else are you supposed to go?
I feel like oftentimes it's kind of like no one's wowed that you took a trip to Florida, but it's like that doesn't mean you didn't have a good time in Florida.
Like it's usually relatively affordable if depending on where you go. Pretty easy to get to.
The weather's almost always nice. And like when you're going on a vacation, like you want to bank on good weather.
And like if there's a beach, what really more do you want? If you're going to Florida for a beach, you will get that. Like honestly, if you go to, there's a lot of places you can go for a beach, but like California wouldn't be like my first thought of like, oh, I want to go to a beach
vacation.
Let me go to California. Because sometimes the weather is like hit or miss depending on the time of year for California.
And the water's cold.
Exactly. Hawaii, very expensive, very far.
Bahamas and Caribbean, great, but also more expensive and further, and you'd have to do with like international travel.
Texas, I know you can go do beach vacation there, but like that's not my first. Or like Gulf Shores, like
options, but certainly not
like
the beach.
Based off this person, I'm sure they're not impressed with you going to Gulf Shores or like Galveston either. So like, what do you want from us?
And I feel like you can certainly find more like unique vacations in the U.S., but like Florida's just kind of you're gonna get a decent vacation.
It's tried and true.
So is it overrated? I don't know that I'd say that. Is it unique? No. Is it the best vacation of your life? Probably not. But
you'll have a good time if you like you go in knowing what you're gonna get. Okay. I see some fashion hot takes
already
here.
I was on that website, so I don't know if this is where I got it from or not, or if I got it somewhere else.
I'm gonna read it.
Skinny jeans on men are not it.
I agree with this, and I also don't think it's a hot take.
I think it's a very common.
You know what
take
I
now.
think?
If you see, because there are like men's fashion guys on TikTok, they make one video about how they switched out from skinny jeans to
the girls go wild.
Skinny jeans. The girls are going crazy. 1 million likes on a video. The number of saves, insane. Everyone in the comments saying, guys, listen to this guy. Like, it is such an overwhelming, unanimous opinion at this point for the girls.
For the ladies.
And so
I feel like 9 times out of 10, the guys
that don't like making new choices and trying new things. Same with like 5-inch inseams.
Well, the one guy on TikTok, there's this girl who is picking out her boyfriend's shirts every day, but she's doing it subconsciously because she goes into his closet, she makes a small little gap in his shirts that are hanging up. And so she's like, he's either going to pick the shirt on this side of the gap or this side of the gap. And then she just waits to see what he puts on for the day. And I think we're on like day 6 or something, and he has always picked a shirt from the gap. So not all men, but clearly
men are simple creatures.
Some men are simple creatures and do not dress themselves.
And so if you're a woman that has any stake into what your man is wearing,
try that out. But back to the pants.
Or just be the one that buys him the new clothes. I think you'd look great in this.
I think that a lot of the guys that I see wearing skinny jeans are like bodybuilder guys. And they want people to just like know how in shape they are. But I feel like that's the worst type of people that it looks on. Does that make any sense?
I would have worded that differently. But
you know what I'm saying though? Like, bodybuilders are the last person that should be wearing skinny jeans.
But they're the most likely to.
Yes.
Yeah.
But honestly, girls, you should start wearing skinny jeans too. No one wears skinny jeans anymore. Okay. This hot take for fashion is Crocs are a must-have footwear item. Megan and I have never owned Crocs.
Have you seen some of the shoes that Crocs is coming out with, though?
No.
They've got some, like, sandals and stuff that, like, are not that ugly. Like, I honestly wouldn't say they're ugly.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna... I could show them to you later, but I won't.
What's weird is that I hear the biggest selling point for Crocs are obviously not their looks. People just say they're very comfortable. And I don't even know that I've ever tried any on, but I don't feel like they'd be that comfortable compared to other shoes that I own. Like my Birks are perfectly fine.
I feel like they're like easy.
Birks are easy. And Birks aren't like the cutest looking shoe either. Everyone calls them like Jesus sandals. But they're okay. And like I used to not like Birks because I thought they were ugly. And then I was like, you know what? They're practical. They don't give me blisters. And half the time in the summer, if you like are wearing sandals, that's the biggest battle is that I'm getting blisters. And so like years ago, that's when I was like, you know what? We're wearing Birks. That's like my summer shoe. And I've been happier since then.
I'm glad. I was just thinking because like I've had my Birks for like my 3-strap ones for such a long time that it's like I should almost like get a new pair because like they're gross at this point. But we'll see if I actually like do that. Okay. Here's one. The mullet is a good hairstyle.
That is a hot take. I mean, it depends on the person. There's something that I can see it on where it's like, okay, like that works for your style and for your vibe and like the kind of person that you are.
But then there's some people where it's like they grew out a mullet just to like say they grew out a mullet. And it's not really like, it's when people say like you're wearing the hat or the hat's wearing you. You're wearing the hair or the hair is wearing you. You need to wear the hair. And it just needs to look like, I think on the right guy, it can look and match the vibe he's going for very well. My favorite hairstyle is probably just like a grown out flow. I don't know if flow is really like, I can't differentiate every exact hairstyle that guys have, but I just like a nice grown out, not down to the shoulders, but just like grown out hair. I like longer hair, generally speaking.
Like when guys would like say it's time to get a haircut and you're like, no, leave it absolutely where it's at. Food hot take. Pop-Tarts are overrated. You know what's weird? Megan and we haven't gotten Pop-Tarts in a long time, but our dad would get knockoff Pop-Tarts, and so we got really used to having those for a while. And one time he bought just like name brand Pop-Tarts, and we're like, oh, like this will be good. It's name brand Pop-Tarts. We put them in the toaster. We're like, buy the other ones next time because these are not good. And so I would actually be curious to like do a taste test of like the actual Pop-Tarts again and like
did we just get a
generic
bad batch?
Because I was like, this is like actually bad. And I know I've had like my childhood, I had Pop-Tarts all the time and I liked them. So I was like, I know I have liked these Pop-Tarts before. So am I just comparing it to what I've had and now I think they're gross? It was weird.
Here's my last thing that I have. Is it a hot take? I don't really know, but it's more of like a debate. 312s versus 5.8s versus 410s. What is like... Because here's the thing. I know that nurses, many of them who work 312s, like they rave that like they can't imagine working more than 3 days a week now. But it's like when that is your 3 days, like that's your 3 days. You can't live, sleep, eat, breathe, or do anything but like nursing in that example. Because like you're getting up at like 5:30, going to work, getting home at like 8. You got to wake up and do it all over again. Granted, you get 4 days off. You know, that'd be pretty nice.
I think I would have to live it to really know. I will say, I don't think I would ever do 410s.
I don't think so either. Because I do not think the 10-hour days are worth the 1 day off.
It wasn't the same thing, but like during one of my clinical rotations, I had like, it was not 410s, but I had like 4 longer than 8-hour days usually. And then like I had a half day on Friday. And that half day on Friday was just like not worth the extra time that I spent every other day of the week there.
That's what's mostly led me to think like that middle of the ground is like not worth it. I'd rather just work like the shorter days, all 5 days. But when you get to the extreme of like the 312s,
and now suddenly you have more time off than time on.
Yeah.
then maybe it's worth it.
So, but then you also hear sometimes, like, people in the nursing, like, field say, like, I switched to working outpatient, like, 5/8, and, like, my life has never been better.
Mm-hmm. So. It definitely would depend on the lifestyle that you're wanting to live outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're a mom, I could not see how, like, 3/12s would be feasible. But people do it.
Someone who, like, would rather, like, just, like, grind for 3 days and then, like, have the flexibility of, like, traveling or doing other things on your 4 days off, then, like, that could definitely be a pro.
I don't know. It's everyone's, personal
Maybe it just depends on the phase of life you're in.
Someone on here said the Great Pyramids aren't as great as they look in photos. I've never been to the Great Pyramids, so I could see that, though. Like, you know how you can see the Great Pyramids from... What town are they next to? Are they right next to Cairo? I know they're in Giza, right? But there's, like, that meme of, like, you can see it from a Pizza Hut. So I just feel like you'd be, like, within the town and you're like, oh, there's the pyramids. They looked more grand in real life, or in pictures.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's all I got for hot takes.
That's all I have as well.
So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. You guys can let us know your hottest takes in the Instagram post that we post for this episode. And you can also let us know if there were any that we discussed on here that you either agree with or disagree with.
We have a YouTube channel for our podcast. If you just search According to Podcast, you can find it if you want to watch us while we talk. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can comment some stuff on there if you want to. Yeah, that's all I have. I don't know what I'm even saying.
Okay, we will talk to you guys next Thursday. Bye.